ambitious plans to widen Woking's Victoria Arch have hit a stumbling block as costs spiral, and the closure time for the town centre thoroughfare could be 2 years. The original budget to replace the rail bridge was £115 million, but now they've discovered it could be more like £169 million. The Deputy Council Leader for Woking is Liberal Democrat Councillor Will Forster, joins us on the line. Good morning, Will.
Morning, Peter.
Thank you for joining us on this. That's a bit of an extra cost. Why has that happened?
Well, the Lib Dem administration that obviously took over at Woking in May has decided we want to pause and review the Victoria Arch scheme. The scheme has a lot of merit in principle. I just think the scheme has grown far too much, and that's shown in the costs. The council got funding from the government for this scheme, but actually the more they dive into the detail, they found that there's a lot more costs. Now, some of that was things that needs to be done that weren't included in the bid, but with Brexit, with COVID, with the war in Ukraine, costs have really spiraled, and it's an extra 53, maybe 54 million pounds before work really gets underway. Now that isn't sustainable, which is why we need to pause the scheme and review it. We need a scheme that is viable, that fits the budget.
I remember being taken round with my hard hat on. I think it was about November 2019. So the towers were up. I was able to go up. I was able to look down and be given a bit of a tour of the situation of where things. And a lot of what I was told on that particular day has come to pass. Some of the big brand names are in Woking, and Italia Conti and all sorts of things have moved in. But I do remember being told that the whole Victoria Arch aspect was a really central point for being able to make the real progress beyond what's already there in Woking. Is that still the case then?
Well, Victoria Arch does need improvement, but you've just talked about the shopping centre expansion that we've got in Woking. Woking's had years of roadworks and building works to deliver that. Not all of the shopping units are yet full. We've had the COVID pandemic. The new administration and I are just so concerned that the town economically can't cope with the significant road closures involved in the previous administration.
Yeah, sorry, Will, I'm going to interrupt. I understand, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to quickly get back on that point. I was talking about Victoria Arch, but as you well know, all of the whole infrastructural aspect of what's happened in Woking is entirely interlinked. The vision that was put there, rightly or wrongly, and some people have all sorts of opinions about the way that Woking looks, it's all interlinked. If you're suddenly going to stop and pause on what is one of the big major regeneration projects in the southeast of England, where does that leave people and residents in the town wondering actually what's going to be going on now?
Well, over the coming months, we will develop a viable scheme that delivers as much of those positive benefits to the town as you can. But what we can't do is go that much over budget, and what we can't do is close the town down for 2.5 years for vehicles going all the way around Woking. That it would not be good economically for the town, and that's why the decision to pause and review has been made. We will do a Victoria Arch scheme, but it's got to be a sensible, appropriate scheme that fits the budget and that doesn't cause as much disruption to residents and businesses.
Okay. So a bit of a pause and a rethink is the way that you're putting it forward. I mean, there are other issues involved, of course. So there's the issue that the council only gets the Homes England money, and money is what you're worrying about here for the project. And it only gets that money on the condition that it builds a certain number of houses in Woking. So how do you feel about that now? If you're going to pause and rethink, so is that now potentially money that's not now going to come in?
So, as you said, the government, Homes England, agreed to give this money on condition that a certain number of new homes are built in Woking Town Centre. The council had a gut reaction that they could allow that could work, but they don't have the detail. One of the other priorities of the new administration is to do a master plan for the town centre, where we really shape what's going to happen, and that will go out to consultation very soon and should be agreed in our first year as the administration. The certainty of what the master plan will deliver will really help. So actually having that master plan will be able to shape this review of Victoria Arch.
I think, listen, when people are having to, particularly, of course, with the background situation economically that we are now finding ourselves in, to a certain extent, I'm sure there's a number of people who will understand why it is that there's a basic review going on. You're causing a stir there, Will. Someone's trying to get hold of you. But at the same time, it now feels, if I was a resident of Woking, I'm now hearing, well, we've got as far as we've got, and we'll sort of just leave it like this for a while and hope for the best.
We don't want to leave the Victoria Arch area as it is forever. There is a fair bit of a hole, which what the council and the town calls the triangle. They've started to demolish that. Money has been spent to buy those properties and demolish that. We cannot axe the project and leave that hole in the middle of the town centre. But we also can't just proceed as normal with a huge budget deficit and a huge delay to residents by closing the road. So we do need a sensible, viable scheme, and hopefully that's what this review will create.
I was mentioning earlier on about the fact that, so much has been going on in Woking. This development has been going on for such a long time. I mean, I can't remember how long it is now, Will, that, Victoria Way has had various different ways of being able to get round it, doesn't it, for quite some time. And, whatever people think of how Woking now looks, it has been, I think it's fair to say, thought of locally as being the town that's getting on with it. While others perhaps falter and sort of, mumble around and disagree amongst themselves about the way things move forward, Woking's been getting on with it. Do you think now that we've got to a point where, because of this reconsideration, which many will understand, but do you think Woking's now going to be in danger of losing that reputation of being the progressive town that it's become?
No, Woking Borough Council has cross-party always had ambition, and I think we want that ambition. We can't have ambition that destroys the town in the short to medium term. And I'm afraid that's what a 2.5-year road closure would do. There's a lot of local residents that have concerns about what's gone in the town. A lot like it as well, but I think universally that they know we need to have our town back. We need to have some degree of normality. And the old scheme, the previous scheme, Victoria Arch wouldn't do that. The idea of the A320 being closed for 2.5 years, which is the plan, it isn't viable. The town has sort of barely survived COVID and the roadworks. It has been damaging. We can't keep that going for another 2.5 years.
Okay, listen, because you're a Liberal Democrat, of course, you're Deputy Council Leader at Woking. I can't let you go without obviously just asking you about where you are with the national situation, the resignation, of course, of Boris Johnson, upcoming leadership contest as a Liberal Democrat. How are you looking on at the moment?
We know Boris Johnson and the Conservatives are so unpopular at the moment, and they've really taken for granted and lost the trust of the public. So I am pleased to see him finally agreeing to resign. He's done so much damage to his party, the government, but politics generally. What I do find appalling is that he's still trying to cling on. He should go completely. He's shown to be a liar. His party, his cabinet don't have confidence with him. He does need to go straight away. But I don't think it's just about Boris Johnson. I do think the Conservatives will rue the day that they've allowed him and enabled him to be in power for so long. Residents I know in Woking, in my ward, certainly won't forgive the Conservatives for the foreseeable future for allowing Boris to do what he's done.
Well, Will, of course, that's your opinion, and we thank you for it, expressing it anyway. Some will agree, some will disagree, of course. But thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Peter.
Will Forster, who is the Liberal Democrat Deputy Council Leader of Woking Borough Council. You're listening to BBC Radio Surrey.